I'm going to talk about the time that my sister-in-law confronted me. I was going to title it The First Time She Confronted Me, but it wasn't. It was just one of the times where she really started showing the monster that she could be and that she was capable of being. So about a week ago, I recorded a 10-part on TikTok about a time that my mother-in-law confronted me in person. My sister-in-laws who live in differing states were on the phone for what I did not know was an intervention. And so this, if you are interested in looking, look at my 10 parts about the time that the first time that my narcissistic in-laws ganged up on me as the victim, being triangulated in this narcissistic family cult full of manipulation. After this confrontation, I was gaslit severely to the point that I thought that it was my fault that the confrontation had occurred. I thought it was my fault that I'd been yelled at. I thought it was my fault I'd been swore at. I thought it was completely my fault. However, I didn't go running back to them because something did obviously feel off in my gut. And so I was on a group chat with them at that time, see other things that I have, venting about how horrible group chats are. And I kind of went silent, which is something I do, which I've learned about other trauma in my life, is I dissociate and I tend to just go quiet. I do not strike back, I just go quiet. And so I went silent for let's see, about 8 months. I kind of went silent, didn't really respond to anything on the group chat, didn't specifically myself say anything, and didn't really respond to anything. So in November of 2020, my oldest sister-in-law, who lives in another state, reached out. She texted me, and she texted me with an audio message. And in the audio, she said, Bethy, I've noticed that for the last several months, you haven't been as active on the group chat and you haven't been speaking. I just wanted to know if anything is, quote, bothering you or offending you, end quote. And if you would like to let me know, I would so appreciate. And my first thought was, I didn't know the term at the time, but that is incredible gaslighting. 8 months previous, I was ganged up on by all of you, yelled at, swore at in front of my children, my immediate family who I grew up with, insulted as being sad, angry, and cruel. But what could possibly be bothering or offending me? And so she sent it as an audio. I had my husband listen to it, and he also was kind of like, wow, that's quite a thing that she could act like she has no idea what's going on. So I responded to her within a day and said, thank you for reaching. I texted back, thank you for reaching out. I do plan to respond. I would like to get my thoughts together first, and then I will respond. So if I don't respond for a couple days, it's not that I'm ignoring you. I just kind of want to put my thoughts together. And so I did. For the rest of the week, talked to my husband about what I was going to say, asked him if he wanted to hear it, because I did choose to respond in the same method that she reached out. So she reached out again as an audio message. And whereas I thought I could email, I could blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, I was like, I will respond the way that she reached out with an audio, because then she'll be able to kind of hear my tone of voice. She can't misconstrue that, she was yelling when there was... when she said that sentence, or that was sorry, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I can see the advantage of responding with this audio format, so I'll do it as an audio format. So this is what I said. So I said, thank you for reaching out, sister-in-law. I appreciate that you are aware that something is offending and bothering me. And yes, you're absolutely right. Something is offending and bothering me. The first reason that I'm upset with you, sister-in-law, is because back 8 months ago in March, when I was confronted at that intervention style at the kitchen table, you did nothing to limit or calm your mom the entire time that she was yelling at me. She insulted my marriage. She insulted my Iowa family I grew up with. She called me kiddo. And I'm mad at you, as well as my own husband, your brother, who sat at the table and said nothing. I'm also mad in the same way at my other sister-in-law, who is in another state and was on the phone. So it's not just you. I've struggled with anger with all of you. In fact, for the last 8 months, I've had to do some therapy and major discussion with my husband because of my anger and betrayal that he sat at the table and did nothing. Again, I didn't know at that time that they were narcissists at all. In hindsight, I now can recognize what my husband was doing. He'd had so many years of decades of manipulation and guilt himself that my therapist helped me understand that with the way he was controlled, he almost entered a fugue state, which is kind of what he later said that he did. And so I said, whereas I am mad also at my husband, your brother, for being silent, I'm additionally kind of another echelon of mad with you and other sister-in-law because you told us later after this March confrontation that mother-in-law had blown up in other scenarios at you. You were both, you and other sister-in-law were aware that she was capable of raging like this. And you both witnessed it and you still did nothing about it when it happened to me. And I went on to say this. The second reason that I am upset, offended, or bothered, as you asked what I am, is because you and my other sister-in-law both victim blamed me when it was over. Again, I didn't know those terms at that time. But you know, when this confrontation was over, where I'd been yelled at and insulted in front of my children, you both blamed me. You said it was my fault, that it's your fault that you got yelled at. Like that's just unbelievable. You said things like, it's because you questioned mom's mental health. It's because you had boundaries that you brought up boundaries, and that's a hot button word for her. Again, in retrospect, these things are just like, oh my gosh, like ridiculous. But at the time, I was still in such a coerced, manipulated state that those texts weren't as red flag as they should have been to me. So, and I said, and in addition to you giving excuses for why, you brought up mental health, that's why she raged. That wasn't true. Again, in that 10-part that I have in my earlier last week that I posted, pretty instantly she was raging. So it had nothing to do with me saying, no, that you can't have the girls. But I said the bulk of my hurt and anger with that intervention lies on you, because you, sister-in-law, you sent an email to me 12 hours before we went up to see your mom, but you BCC'd your mom. I didn't know that your mom also received it. I have to admit I was suspicious that she probably did, but you sister-in-law, sent your mom an email saying how mad you were at me. And I have to think of myself as I am a mother of two daughters, ages 6 and 7. And I have to, in a way, put myself in the shoes of receiving an email from one of my daughters directed to someone else saying how angry they are. I'd like to think I would be level-headed about it, but being a mom, you'd have to think, wow, I mean, someone made my daughter that upset. I would think it would fire me up. So anyway, and so I said, I found out that you had sent it to her, even though I was suspicious. I found out you sent it to my mother-in-law, BCC'd her, because partway, about a third of the way into that 3-hour confrontation of her yelling at me in the kitchen table, she jumped up from the table and said, "Did you read the email that sister-in-law sent you last night?" Because I did. Like it was like some cool thing that she got to do. And so I said, maybe the talk wouldn't have gone the way that it did if you hadn't sent that email. I'm certainly not going to put all the blame on you. Mother-in-law, narcissistic mother-in-law, was already mad at me for various other ways, and that I recently had started having boundaries, but it certainly didn't help the situation that you sent that email 12 hours earlier. So the email that you sent mother-in-law 12 hours before the blow-up is partly what led to this, probably. And I said, and that even aside, the problem with that email, not only the timing was not helpful, but it also was, anyone who read that email, even my own mom, would have been like, Bethy is Satan. Bethy's a horrible person. Because it was obviously coming from your really sensitive point of view of you being really angry at me. It had none of my context. It wasn't kind of truthful in responses that I had to certain situations. And so of course your mom exploded when she read this email, because it paints me in a really, really bad light. So I said, let's go through that email. I never responded to that email. So let's go through that and let's have a little bit of of my defense at this point. And I was doing this in this audio response back to her when she had, if you didn't listen to the other stuff, asked for what's bothering, what's offending you. So let's go through that email, sister-in-law. So it started off with the comments from you, Bethany, about your desires for boundaries and the freedom to say no does not feel helpful. That sentence alone is like hilarious. Now that I've been through, now that a year and a half almost 2 years has gone by and I've been through therapy, that question almost makes me crack up if it hadn't been so extremely damaging to me. At the point I ripped on that statement in my 10-part about the confrontation, but long story short, it doesn't fucking matter if it doesn't feel helpful to you that I have boundaries, and it doesn't feel helpful to you that I want to say no. Fuck off. So back to her email. I had simply asked to hear from my husband, her brother, about his opinions and thoughts about navigating this season with Mom. There have been many text conversations and in-person interactions with you in the past months, Bethy, that have felt bad, that didn't feel like they were based on love and support. Whether or not these were intended, that's how they felt. Even the night before Dad's funeral, my father-in-law passed away, I remember words coming from you at your home that you didn't want to support our mom in her needs. I always hope your words and tone do not represent you both as a couple, and that's why I asked my brother, my husband, to speak up in these situations. In terms of boundaries, I'm certainly in support of everyone having healthy boundaries and feeling free to communicate with the rest of the family what feels good, what feels possible, what feels stressful, and what feels like too much. That's bullshit word salad. I'll go into that in a little bit. However, the overarching sentiment that I've been feeling these past months is that it's overwhelming and burdensome for you to participate in our family, Bethy, at this time when we need each other the most. This is also manipulative. It makes me want to vomit, mostly laugh, actually, because, again, my therapy has helped at this point. Continuing on, so I can see right through this bullshit. So it just makes me laugh now, even though it's ridiculous and was so hurtful back then when I didn't know the coercion and manipulation that was occurring. So I said, you wrote that, sister-in-law. I never responded. And 8 months later, since you asked what's bothering or offending me, allow me to bring up your email that was full of, I said to her, half-truths, because I didn't have my part of the story, but lies. Let's just say lies. And so I said, it's one thing for you, sister-in-law, to say that you certainly are in support of everyone having healthy boundaries and feeling free to communicate with the rest of the family what feels good, what feels possible, what feels stressful, etc. Word salad, blah. It's another to actually model your words. One of the things directly leading to you, sister-in-law, sending this email to me was just a few days previous. I had told you all of the reasons that husband and I did not want to, it's a long story, but there was going to be a family wedding, a cousin, and my mother-in-law and sister-in-laws all wanted to stay, have a happy party at a hotel. And there were various reasons why husband and I weren't comfortable with that. One of them being that a really 10-year-old niece was going to be taking care of 9 young children. But anyway, I don't have to go into there. So we told sister-in-law why, we weren't okay with that hotel scenario. We were just going to go home when the wedding, we were going to go to the wedding till it was over. And then we were going to have our children stay with, someone else and then go home. And we'd been horribly guilted for it. So anyway, I was saying that one of the things that kind of led to this email that you're already mad at me about is we'd told you that we were stressed out at the idea of staying at a hotel, that it didn't feel good for us. It didn't feel right. And when we told you that, you questioned us. You continued to push. You side texted. So you directed your anger on your brother, my husband, and told him how this is family and you're not supporting the family and this is something we all want and this is something we need. And so I said, it confuses me that we're handling and responding how you're saying, you want us to communicate with the rest of the family what feels good, what feels possible, what feels stressful, but we still get questioned and pressured when we do that. In fact, sister-in-law, as part of the wedding hotel thing, you said that we all needed to collaborate to say yes, which is the antithesis of boundaries, pretty much. So don't tell me that you are so supportive of boundaries when obviously your actions don't model your words. And in addition, you had stated that you remember words coming from your mouth about not wanting to support mom in her needs. And yeah, I did say that. I said that my husband and I work Monday through Friday. Mother-in-law lives a 2-hour round trip away. We can't go up every weekend. We have to food prep, laundry, clean, etc. Look back at the other stuff. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Just thanks for listening. Please stay. And so I said that so we tell you that things are too much, or that it's too, like, we're doing, you say, tell us when we're asking too much from you. Tell us when you can't handle certain things. We do. It's just, it's not like good enough for you. You don't hear it. It's in one ear and out the other. And then the pressure and the manipulation and the coercion comes out. I didn't say this in my audio. I'm saying this for TikTok, but what I said was, we do what you're asking. You tell us to communicate. We do it. It doesn't work. And I said, so I'm confused. You're asking us to communicate and say when something doesn't work and give reasons. We're doing that. We do it. So then her email went on to say, with all of that said, my hope is that if you do feel overburdened, you could find a kind way of sharing what your limits are with all of us. If we know that you feel overwhelmed with being asked to help out, it would be nice if we know where you're coming from instead of always feeling hurt when you say no. And I said, we do say where we're coming from. I don't know of a time that we have said no to something. We'd only recently started saying no. No is like, if you are in a relationship where you can't say no, I don't care if it's a friend, family member, neighbor, red flag. No needs to be something that someone accepts. I didn't know that because I was sort of raised. I'm also having to go through some childhood stuff as I get therapy. I was raised that you don't say no, that you go. But anyway, for the sake of right now. So I said, we give rationale for saying no. I don't know of a time we've ever just said no. The issue with that is we give reasons and it's not enough. We say no, we say why we're saying no, but you just come back with family and we're just not taking family seriously enough. We're not committed to, like, a common one is that we're not committed to the family in the way that everyone else is committed to us. And I said, your mom does this to us too, questions us anytime that we say no to something. So I ended my audio by saying, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate that you reached out to ask what's bothering or offending me. I was kind of waiting for something like this, for someone to reach out. And there you go. There are all the reasons that I do feel like you have heard me in this scenario. So I sent it off. So the next morning I got an audio back that she was very upset, had not expected, obviously, what I was saying. So for a narcissist, it's very, very extremely hard to hear the truth because their life, their view of themselves is built on a facade. And so imagine having a facade of yourself being this amazing person who can do no wrong, and then hearing someone tell you all of the ways in which you are a total asshole. It would be hard, I have to admit. So in her audio that she sent back, so she audioed me, I audioed back, then she audioed again, and was very upset. She's can't believe that you're still mad, you're still holding a grudge, which I didn't know at the time is also very much of a narcissistic technique to make you feel like you're holding on to a grudge when really you were treated horribly. No one apologized. Your children are traumatized. You are traumatized, but you're the bad guy because you didn't just get over it. You're holding a grudge by being traumatized from what they've done. Again, I didn't know this at the time. So her audio was that you're still mad. I can't believe you're still mad. I can't believe you're still hanging on to something that happened 8 months ago. It's like, yeah, none of you have apologized. Yeah. And so, and she said, we are allowed to speak our truth. We are allowed to have opinions for how things are going in this family. And I responded back immediately with the audio and said, you are right. We are allowed to disagree. I'm not saying we have to totally agree on everything. I like disagreeing about things and discussing things, debating things. But the minute that a 3 and a 4-year-old walked in the door that day, the debate was off the table. When a kid enters the room, we don't debate heatedly anymore. We could have done it any other time. I'm open to debate. sis-in-law. But when kids are there, it doesn't happen. So anyway, I said it a lot nicer. It was just like, it makes me think that you don't give a crap that my daughters had nightmares and were traumatized from hearing all of you gang up on me, is what that tells me. Like, yeah, you're allowed to speak your truth in a different venue than what went down. And so I didn't know that any of my in-laws were narcissists, so this next plays out perfectly in the narcissistic playbook. I didn't know at the time. And then she calls my husband and is just bawling to him about how Bethany's ripping the family apart. And did you hear the audio that she sent me? Yeah, he had. I don't communicate with them without my husband knowing what I'm saying, so that they can't do exactly what she did there and then tried to do a million times in the months since then. And he blew it because he was also very coerced at the time and didn't know they were narcissists, and said something like, at the end of the day, I love you, and, this will all be okay at some point. And she responded to me with, I called my brother and I heard that he loves me, and that's all I need right now. And I'm left thinking, then why'd you reach out in the first place?